A lot has been done in the past in terms of making custom reach to the levels that I aspire it to be. For example, if we just go to box and turn off line box, we can go to auto depth and begin talking about auto depth. Let's jump back to custom. And with auto depth enabled, basically we can just draw shapes out one to one, and that's great. However, once you swap your shape over to another shape, that's no longer a thing. So now whenever we're drawing with box, we still have auto depth on, which is just problematic with this other shape. So we have to just toggle that back off, and then we can actually undo this and go back to working as normal. So the thing about having auto proportions is that this is a state that is going to be pretty much permanent with custom, at least as it's getting refined. So right now we see that it's already on. Even though we're in box, we're able to still cut with box just generically like normal. But if we were to say grab this area and perform an extraction with Y, and then we begin drawing it, we see that automatic proportions already takes over. We can just tab to pause the shape, press Ctrl R to rotate this shape 90 degrees, get it exactly where we want, press spacebar, and not even have to think about depth in order to complete the operation. So the goal is to make custom a little bit more automatic, because the way that it was before was it was behaving like box. And so I always said internally that having custom behave like box is an inaccurate way to use custom, because custom should have its own special behavior that makes it definitely unique compared to the rest of the shapes. And so while we've added some systems to make it capable of being unique in comparison with the other shapes like auto depth, we need something that's actually on by default and just there solving a lot of these issues that come up with having to press so many hotkeys. Because without automatic proportions, you would go to custom, you would hold shift in order to begin dragging your shape out one to one, and this behavior is still available. And we can just right click to pause this. We could press Ctrl R in order to bring the shape out after rotating at 90, S to scale. And then while we're dragging the extrusion dot, while holding Control, we're able to bring this out one to one. So it differs from the version that I was showing previously. In the older version of Blender, whenever it comes to dealing with extrusion, we have to move it from shift because we don't always want to shift the shape to live. So this type of thinking obviously gets very convoluted. So the simplest way is to just make custom, have an automatic proportions behavior that whenever you draw, you automatically get those proportions if you need them. And then you could either bring it out and it will automatically stop at the correct depth because you're already working at one to one, or you could just press Alt to release AccuCut from having a grip over your mesh where you can get with a variable depth. But in the event that you want to constrain this still, you could always just hold Control and constrain it, click and apply, and we don't have to worry about the shape being kept alive. So while auto proportions does a bit of the work that auto depth does, these are still built to work hand in hand and shouldn't even interfere with each other. But just letting users know that while we weren't able to give auto depth the ability to be unique to a particular shape, we were able to deal with it behaviorally via auto proportions. And in case I didn't stress the point enough, you're now able to basically draw shapes and extract these areas and draw them without any sort of hotkey presses. In fact, I'm just creating this area using the traditional workflows that you normally see me using of wedge and box and cut. We could press Y in order to extract this. And then from here, whenever we click and drag, we see that we don't have to even press any key. I still want some sort of modifier key we can press now at this point in order to perform rotate, but internally that's called crazy talk. So we will be getting to it at some point where custom will just feel a lot more maneuverable than it ever did previously. But for now, we are at least dealing with the rigidity of the hotkey usage and freeing them up for them possibly able to be used for other things. But the behaviors of release lock are also present whenever it comes to using auto proportions. So you can just draw a shape, release, and I find release lock to be a really chill state to work because you can just draw a shape, it just pauses it. You can press Ctrl R at your own leisure. You can press S. You don't have to worry about the shape actually progressing on to the next step. We can now click even off the shape in order to complete the operation. But whenever it comes to release lock, there are additional behaviors to it, as we can see under the release lock subpanel. If we go to release lock laser cut, this now means that we draw a shape. When we click to apply, it actually pauses on that apply, which is the laser cut. And we can actually take this, rotate it with R if we need, or Control R if we're trying to get calibrated, and still press S and scale this to absolutely the shape that we want it to and get it exactly where we want without having to press all these extra keys or hold modifiers during the process to get where we need to go. So let's just set that up again. And we see that we could just pause the laser cut just like that by just bringing the shape all the way up and just allowing it to complete. Let us rotate this, press S, bring it to exactly where we want, where it will continue to automatically pause, and then we click and complete, and this operation was done a lot more gracefully than it was in previous versions.